The Jedi are worshipped as legends, spoken of as warriors of peace and guardians of the light. Their name carries weight across the galaxy, etched into history as symbols of justice and wisdom. Yet, for all their power, for all their teachings, they have failed time and time again. They sat in golden halls while darkness festered beneath their feet. They spoke of destiny while their own slipped through their fingers. They clung to tradition while the galaxy moved on without them. For centuries, they stood above all others, untouched by the corruption of men. Yet it was their own arrogance that led to their downfall. They prided themselves on knowledge, yet they ignored the truth. They preached discipline, yet they let fear control them. The Jedi feared the dark side so much that they destroyed anything that resembled it, never realizing that true strength comes not from denial but from understanding. It was not the Sith who defeated the Jedi, it was their own blindness, their unwillingness to adapt, their obsession with control. They believed that by suppressing emotion, they could become something greater, something pure, yet in doing so, they became hollow. They distanced themselves from the very thing that makes people strong: hope, love, purpose. And so, when the darkness came, they did not stand against it. They crumbled beneath it. The story of the Jedi is not one of triumph. It is one of failure. They had every advantage. They had the knowledge. They had the strength. They had the ability to see the future. Yet they could not even see their own destruction. They were so convinced of their own righteousness that they refused to acknowledge the flaws in their ways. And so, the greatest warriors in the galaxy were wiped out in a single night. Not because they were weak, but because they were blind. In this video, we will break down the truth behind the Jedi Council, exposing their hypocrisy, their mistakes, and their ultimate failure. We will examine how their arrogance led to their own destruction, how their teachings crippled them instead of strengthening them, and why, despite all their power, they were doomed from the very beginning. The Jedi Council sits at the highest point of Coruscant, towering over the galaxy with an air of authority. They claim to be the keepers of peace, the guardians of wisdom, yet they are blind to the chaos unraveling beneath them. They speak in riddles, disguised as profound wisdom, but their words often lead to inaction. A Jedi must not act on emotion, they say, yet their very existence is dictated by fear of the dark side. The Jedi are taught to suppress their feelings, to rid themselves of attachment, yet attachment is what makes beings strong. It is what gives purpose, what fuels resilience. They sever themselves from the very essence of life, believing it will keep them from corruption. Instead, it makes them weak. It makes them cold. It blinds them to the suffering of those who look up to them. For centuries, they sit in their ivory tower, debating philosophy, while war brews in the shadows. They pride themselves on patience, on restraint, yet their refusal to act only allows darkness to grow. When the Sith rise, they do not strike first. They wait, they deliberate, they hesitate, until it is too late. By the time they act, the enemy is already among them, whispering into the ears of the Republic. The Jedi believe they are enlightened, that they alone understand the will of the Force. But the Force does not belong to them. It is not theirs to dictate. It moves through all things, yet they fear what they do not control. They see visions, and call them warnings, but they do not listen. They claim to know the future, yet they cannot even see the present. The Jedi Council refuses to see what is right in front of them. They suspect the Sith have returned, yet they do not believe it. They sense darkness, yet they dismiss it. They have proof, yet they demand more. Even when the Sith Lord is named, when the truth is laid bare before them, they stand motionless. They hesitate. They discuss. They wait for the enemy to make the first move. They train Jedi to be warriors, yet tell them they must not fight. They send them to battle, yet insist they are not soldiers. They hold them to a standard so impossibly high that even the strongest among them crumble under the weight. The moment a Jedi falters, they are cast out. There is no room for failure. No room for mistakes. No second chances. Anakin Skywalker was the chosen one, the one who would bring balance. They knew he struggled. They knew he was afraid. Yet instead of guiding him, they pushed him further away. They feared his power. They distrusted his emotions. And so, when he needed them most, they abandoned him. They forced him to seek answers elsewhere, and that is the greatest failure of all. The Jedi do not see their own hand in their downfall. They blame the Sith, the war, the Republic. But they never blame themselves. They never acknowledge the part they played. They never admit that it was their arrogance, their blindness, their refusal to adapt that led to their destruction. The Jedi claim to be peacekeepers, yet they hold their lightsabers close. They are not warriors, yet they fight. They do not lead armies, yet the clones march under their command. They preach non-violence, yet they train from childhood in the art of war. The Jedi are contradictions wrapped in robes of self-righteousness. They see love as dangerous, attachment as a path to darkness. Yet they attach themselves to the Republic, to its politics, to its wars. They claim to serve the Force, yet they serve a government. They say they are free of influence, yet they take orders from senators. They claim to be above corruption, yet they stand beside it. They do not rule, yet they hold the power of life and death. It is not the Sith who drag the Jedi into war. It is their own hypocrisy. They refuse to see it. They refuse to acknowledge it. The moment they become generals, the moment they lead soldiers into battle, they betray everything they claim to stand for. They justify it with words of duty, of necessity, but it is all a lie. They do not fight because they must. They fight because they are afraid. The Jedi were meant to be different. They were meant to be better. But when war comes, they do not stand apart. They do not refuse. They do not seek another way. They pick up their weapons and march forward. They tell themselves they have no choice, but they do. The Jedi sense Anakin's conflict, yet they do nothing. They see the pain in his eyes, yet they look away. They place him close to the Chancellor, yet they do not warn him. They demand his trust, yet they offer none in return. They tell him to be patient, to let go, to listen. But they do not listen to him. Palpatine does not need to turn Anakin against them. The Jedi do that themselves. They make him feel like an outsider. They treat him as if he is a threat, as if he is dangerous. They do not understand him, so they fear him. And fear breeds destruction. They thought they could control him. They thought they could keep him in check. They were wrong. When the Jedi finally decide to act, it is already too late. They try to arrest Palpatine, but they fail. They try to stop Anakin, but he is already lost. They try to save the Republic, but the Republic is already gone. The moment they hesitate, the moment they doubt, they seal their fate. The great Jedi Order, the mighty defenders of peace, fall in a single night. And what do they do in their final moments? They run, they hide, they scatter across the galaxy like ghosts. The Council, once so proud, once so untouchable, is reduced to whispers in the dark. They, who claim to be eternal, who believe themselves invincible, are nothing more than relics of a forgotten age. Even in exile, the Jedi refuse to change. Yoda, the greatest of them all, hides away and waits. Obi-Wan watches from afar, doing nothing. They do not rebuild, they do not fight. They wait for someone else to rise. They wait for another hope, another hero, another savior. They place the burden on the next generation. Luke Skywalker is that hope. Yet when he comes to Yoda, seeking answers, what does he find? A broken old man with nothing left to give. A teacher who has given up. A master who has lost faith in the very thing he once served. And when Luke becomes a master himself, what does he do? He repeats the same mistakes. He lets fear drive him. He isolates himself. He turns away from those who need him most. The Jedi never learn, they never grow, they never change. They cling to the past, to their outdated ways, to their old beliefs. They refuse to evolve, and so history repeats itself. The Sith rise again, darkness returns, and the Jedi fall once more. The cycle continues because they refuse to break it. They refuse to admit their faults. They refuse to let go of the illusion that they were ever right. And so, they will always be doomed to fail. The Jedi Order was once great, but greatness is not enough. They had power, but they lacked vision. They had knowledge, but they lacked wisdom. They had strength, but they lacked purpose. They were so afraid of the dark that they blinded themselves to the light. They preached balance, yet they did not understand it. They feared what they could not control, and so they destroyed it. They tried to shape the Force to fit their own ideals, but the Force is not theirs to command. It flows through all things, through all people, through all choices. The Jedi believed they could stand apart from it, but they never could. The Sith did not destroy the Jedi. The Jedi destroyed themselves. They built their order on rules, on restrictions, on denial. But the Force is not about denial. It is about connection. It is about understanding. It is about acceptance. The Jedi rejected these things, and in doing so, they sealed their fate. Perhaps the Jedi were never meant to last. Perhaps they were only ever meant to be a lesson, a warning, a reminder of what happens when power is wasted,